Good afternoon, welcome to the Pink and Matchday vlog. I am Connor Southwell. Today is as big as an afternoon for Norwich City as anyone could envisage, really, given what is at stake today. Maybe not in terms of definitively confirming relegation or survival if they do manage to win today, but certainly in terms of the mood music amongst supporters, and equally the scale of the task, because if Norwich City lose today, Bournemouth, who are a place above them, will go 9 points clear of them, and that points margin that Norwich City are cut adrift by could extend. Now, if Norwich win that, obviously they move closer to Bournemouth, who are in free fall at the moment, and equally perhaps can change the mood a little bit around the place and give themselves a fighting chance before we all go to Tottenham on Wednesday. So it is seismic. I think as much as Daniel Farke tries to play it down, this is as close to a do or die game as Norwich City will get this season. So let's see what happens, and you can follow me around today. Worth noting as well, from my way to the ground, obviously Norwich has made 2 new signings this week, Andre Duda and Lucas Rupp. I think Duda perhaps more likely to be involved, although Daniel Farke usually, I think with the summer signings, took about 5 games before he introduced them. Fair to say the situation has reached that stage of, maybe desperation is not the word, but certainly the scale of it is seismic, and Norwich City do need an instant impact, and at the moment it kind of feels like they need to throw some paper at the walls and to almost see what sticks. So I get a feeling that the Slovakian may perhaps feature today. What a stage, what an occasion for him if he can make an impact, but we'll see. Bournemouth need to win this as well, obviously in free fall. Eddie Howe's position being questioned after last week's defeat to Watford. How are your nerves? Here we are at Carrow Road. Time is about 1 o'clock this afternoon. A couple of hours to go till kick-off. As you can see, there's a few Norwich City supporters milling about. I've seen some Bournemouth fans as well on the walk. This is a massive game for either side. Norwich City definitely need to win it. There's no, make no bones about it. A draw is not good enough. And for Bournemouth equally, they need to win and to improve their form. So a massive day for both sides. That is the entrance where the players will be entering in not too long. Of course, that's the director's entrance as well, where a lot of the fans will be congregating to get a look at their team's heroes and idols and stars. And that, of course, is the iconic badge, Carrow Road. Welcome to Carrow Road. This is my position for this afternoon's game against Bournemouth. Crunch match, as you can imagine. If I spin around there, hopefully with a bit of a light adjustment, you'll be able to see the flags that the wonderful volunteers have put out in the park. Equally, there are some at the river end as well, but I don't think my chair will turn quite to that extent that you get to see those, but they are almost like yellow and green strips to try and help get the atmosphere or raise the atmosphere up by a notch here at Carrow Road today. And my boy, don't Norwich City need it, considering the magnitude of this game. Even though Daniel Farke has played it down, it certainly feels quite seismic for their season, because if they are to lose here today, then I think anyone with any dose of realism would have to say that it's going to be it would take something miraculous for Norwich City to stay in the Premier League. If they do win here, it will still look increasingly difficult. It's not one win that will solve everything, but it could prove to be the spark that they need. We've seen in recent games, particularly at Carrow Road, good performances not backed up with 3 points. That is exactly what Norwich City need to do here today. In terms of team news, Andre Duda starts makes his debut. Lucas Rupp on the bench. Mario Vrancic, Marco Stiepermann, Mo Leitner not in the 18. Ben Godfrey returns. He comes in for Grant Hanley, and then Timu Pukki is in for Adam Eder as well. So a few changes. Bournemouth are in a 4-3-3. They've got a front three of Harry Wilson, Callum Wilson and Ryan Fraser as well. So despite their struggling, there's still plenty of sources for creativity in there, and if they can convert that into output, then we could see a particularly open game here today. But I think both teams will be a bit apprehensive of particularly chasing the game early on. But for me, the onus is on Norwich City, because they desperately need a win here today. It's a win at all costs. I think most Norwich fans will be arriving here today and thinking, just win. That's the aim. And here is your matchday programme. Maybe you end here in that rather fetching playoff final kit. I think that is a certain Wes Houlihan's body that his head has been superimposed onto. And then there's Callum Wilson as well in that kit from the season that both these teams got promoted. If I turn to the back, there are all of the various teams. Interesting new additions: Lucas Rupp, number 7, Andre Duda, number 25. Bournemouth, number of names in their list who are out injured today. That means that Sam Surridge, who's a youngster, and Jack Simpson rather come onto their bench. And yeah, those are the two teams. Obviously, whoever can extract points from this, if either can win, it will be massive for their individual seasons at this point.
For his 100th appearance, which is celebrated against Tottenham Hotspur. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Christoph Zimmermann.
Half time at Carrow Road, deja vu anyone. Norwich City 1-0 ahead at home. The key now is to convert this position and this performance into 3 points that they so desperately need. And it has been a fairly controlled performance, slightly scrappy game all told. Obviously changed dramatically by the red card to Steve Cook after Campbell played in Pookie. Duda looked to intelligently have clipped it into the back of the net, but Steve Cook, to be fair, it's a wonderful save. But a clear red card pushed the ball onto the post, and Pookie stepped up and dispatched the penalty with some aplomb. And really this game has been almost about Norwich City's control compared to Bournemouth's counter-attack, and the front three that Bournemouth had prior to the red card certainly looked to harry Norwich City's centre-backs and defensive operators. Did have a little bit of success with that, and they were looking to play the ball through the channels for Fraser, Wilson and Wilson to run onto. Of course, that red card has changed their shape. They've had to drop deeper, and now it's all about how they respond. But Norwich City, really, the key has been for them possession of the ball, because Bournemouth have gifted Bournemouth the ball a couple of times, and that has really been the only invitation that Bournemouth have had to come and assert themselves onto the fixture from an attacking sense. If they can maintain this level of control and add that second goal they really need, then this is Norwich City's game for the taking. And obviously, in recent weeks they've found themselves in this position and haven't been able to convert it. Today is absolutely critical that they do. They would go to within 3 points of Bournemouth. All to play for, massive second half coming up. Andre Duda, I like the look of him.
Services and chosen by today's match sponsor, Breakwater IT, is Norwich's number 14, Todd Cadwell.
Hi, it's Joel Spillman here. I've just come back from the Norwich City Bournemouth match. It was a bit of a crazy match, really. It had literally everything in it you could ask for. Both teams went into the game really, really desperate for 3 points. Bournemouth sitting 19th in the league, loads of injury issues, lack of confidence, really, you could say. And you could really say the same for Norwich. Although we didn't have any new injuries, we were low of confidence. We hadn't won in a while. Things just weren't looking great for us. It wasn't looking like it was going to be our year. But we kept going, we kept digging, and I think we proved that today, really, the 3 points. Started off a bit slow, I thought, the match. Both teams a little bit weary, not wanting to lunge in too early on. And obviously the penalty incidents was just crazy, with the red card. Duda, fantastic debut, I thought. But overall, I would say today, Norwich City done it right. Daniel Farke didn't go in too hard. He just played it cool, and Norwich took their main chance when they had to, and I think we looked better than what we have done recently. So I'm happy with the 3 points, and let's just pray that Norwich can continue this form for at least another few games.
Well, there we go. I'm here in the aftermath of a Norwich City win, which is something that we've not been able to say too many times this season. And we all spoke, didn't we, before this game, about the importance of it, about how Norwich City just needed to win it. Well, they did just that. Norwich City recorded a 1-0 win here this afternoon against a struggling AFC Bournemouth side, a Bournemouth side who, particularly in the first half, looked devoid of any confidence. Of course, the red card didn't help matters, and I will delve into the game in a moment or two, but first and foremost I want to talk about what I felt from inside these stands at Carrow Road, something I haven't felt for a while, certainly upon the final whistle, and that was a little bit of hope, actually. We haven't seen that in recent weeks for good reason, given Norwich City's league status, but there we go. Too cruel for you there, but that's something we did see today in these terraces, and that man certainly felt it from the supporters, and the players were grateful for their support of Manchester United. I think the fans perhaps rode a little bit after that game, and they certainly got it today as well. It was a really positive performance from Norwich, a game that again wasn't pretty for the majority of it. There were some nice spells and some nice passages of play, but Norwich City did just about enough to win the game and to record that much needed 3 points, which they did need, given their league position. Right, let's talk about the game then. We've spoken a little bit about hope. We've had a brief cameo from Tim Krul as well. So now all we need to do is talk about the game, and it was a game where I think Bournemouth's game plan in the first half was pretty clear to see to everyone. It was to be compact. Off the ball, to look to try and press Norwich well when they look to try and keep the ball among the defenders, and then also look to hit the channels on the counter-attack with the pace of Ryan Fraser, Callum Wilson and Harry Wilson as their front three. And what they did do was absorb pressure in a defensive shape. It was almost like a 4-3-3 with Billing sort of anchoring that midfield and just preventing Norwich from playing those passes through the sides of the centre-backs that Pukki likes to gallop onto. And their defensive shape was pretty good, to be honest. They were forcing Norwich out wide. They were restricting Norwich to shots from the edge of the area, and certainly didn't allow them the space that some teams have allowed them centrally this season. And it was a little bit difficult for Norwich to break down, and the one opportunity they did do that was when Todd Cantwell found Teemu Pukki, who obviously ran through, and then eventually the ball fell for Duda, who looked to have beautifully curled it beyond Aaron Ramsdale, who was so far out of his goal, and it looked to be going into the back of the net, but Steve Cook, from a position on the floor, it was quite impressive actually. He managed to leap up, jump, get his hand to it and punch it onto the post, and obviously Norwich convert the penalty and go 1-0 up. But they were in the ascendancy, really. I think they'd had about 70% possession at that point, and they were moving Bournemouth shape around well. It was just going to be about whether they could take an opportunity and whether they could work a clear opportunity, and they did do that, and deservedly took the lead in that first half, and had opportunities for a second. Emi Buendia headed wide. That might have been at 0-0 actually. But they did have opportunities before half-time to extend that lead. They didn't quite manage to do that. But they were managing it quite well, given Bournemouth had 10 men and were probably trying to reorganise following that red card. They did have to look to keep the ball better, to have their phases of play a little bit sharper and a little bit cleaner. And one man who helped with that today was Andre Duda, who, of course, making his debut after he signed from Hertha Berlin on loan until the end of the season this week. And he looks really tidy in possession. He helped Norwich progress the ball up the pitch, and equally he combined with Buendia and Cantwell enough to give them space in their own right to go and influence the game. And I think it's quite selfless for a player to do that, but equally you've got to have the positional intelligence, spatial intelligence, and the technical ability to be able to do that. And Buendia, I think, was definitely a benefactor of Duda's game today, because, as I said, there were the opportunities to play those combinations that perhaps he hasn't been able to in recent weeks, that allowed Norwich to progress the ball further up the pitch, and for him to have it in more dangerous areas, which is critical given his ability and given how good he is. I just thought it was a really good performance, and he looked a top player. He wanted to receive the ball in tight areas where Bournemouth defenders were crowding him. He wanted the ball. He almost took on that pressure, took on that responsibility, because he wanted to make things happen. There were a couple of nice threaded balls out wide, swept balls out wide. He was good with his back to goal. He was good on the half turn. But of course, this is one performance, and what he needs to do now is display that on a consistent basis, and Norwich need to use those skill sets on a consistent basis as well, because if they can, it looks like they've got a top talent to take advantage of. And it's not a very Daniel Farke thing to do to throw players in the off, but what Duda offered today was something a little bit different in that number 10 position. It was someone who complemented the technical side, but equally was good enough in a defensive shape to make sure that Norwich weren't exposed, and to make sure the two midfielders weren't exposed. And to be fair, Kenny McLean, I felt, offered a little bit more than we've seen in recent weeks from central midfield as well. But really, Duda wanted to receive the ball from deep and wanted to invite Cantwell and Buendia into the game, and also played a number of lovely passes through that cut through Bournemouth's defence, and allowed Norwich to progress it. And that was a key thing for me. There have been times, certainly recently, with that number 10 position where Norwich have looked to progress the ball and looked at it to be a bit of an outlet for them for Buendia and Cantwell to almost spring off and accelerate forward and progress that ball forward up the pitch. And what Duda did was helped aid that a little bit, and it was a good performance from him. But like I say, it is one performance, it is a debut. He was always going to come out and perhaps show people what he was all about. Now the key is to unlock it consistently, and to help Norwich City unlock it consistently rather. And Norwich City will have quite the talent on their hands here. On their hands here, certainly. Emi Buendia as well, I want to mention. He's been impressive, I think, for me, probably since he got reinstated after he was initially dropped from the side. And today he was influential again. He's the source of most of Norwich City's attacks, or certainly involved in them. Wants the ball and is mesmerising to watch the way he glides past defenders. There was a moment in the second half where there seemed to be sort of a block route through to the penalty area, and actually he chose to dribble his way through it, and there were a couple of Bournemouth defenders who scrambled but couldn't prevent him running through. The only thing Norwich performance lacked today was a second killer goal, and like I say, I don't want to make real reference to anything, because even though there is hope, as I mentioned, and there is belief now, this is one foot on Everest, and they've got a lot more to do, and they still need to put that second foot in front of it on Wednesday night against Tottenham. But this is a step, and it's closer than they've been in recent weeks. And like I say, I don't want to link it specifically to any events, but I remember that game against Middlesbrough. Would have been last season, the title-winning season, shall I say, rather. They had a home game here at Carrow Road. Things were beginning to turn a little bit within these stands, and it was actually a Timu Pukki goal, wasn't it, that separated the sides on that day. And from that day, Norwich really kicked on. Now, I'm not going to say that they're going to do that to such epic proportions that they survive in the Premier League. And look, this result may mean nothing in a couple of weeks' time should Norwich lose the next two games. But what it does is keeps them in the fight. It keeps them in the fight, and that is what they possess. They do possess a lot of fight. They do possess a lot of ability as well, and they will probably feel hard done by from a lot of games recently. And this was a performance that probably didn't merit 3 points as much as others have done in the past. The second half, for example, was still far too open. Norwich perhaps didn't have the control on it that they had in the first half, although still sort of enjoyed the lion's share of possession. But there we go, it is a win, and no matter how that came, they had to do it, and they did do it. And as I said, this could prove to be the springboard from which they leap upon, and that they look to build some momentum. Equally, that could get derailed quickly when we all travel to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Wednesday. So really the onus on them now is they've put one brick in, they've got to build a wall, and if they can do that, then who knows what is possible. This side has defied the odds before, and that's not to say they'll do it again, because the position they find themselves in is tremendously difficult. But where there is hope and where there are points to play for, then you can guarantee that Norwich City will keep fighting. Thank you very much for watching. Of course, all your other analysis and reaction all over at pinkun.com.